You have grandchildren?
Yes.
Yeah. So, and they've never seen you coach, obviously. They never,
No.
but
There was an incident with my granddaughter. We were out, we were traveling, and in the airport, somebody would come up and start talking. She finally, 7 years old, she said, "Why does everybody know my grandpa?"
In Pittsburgh, he was known as the emperor of the Steeler dynasty of the 1970s. But it's easy to excuse a 7-year-old's innocence, since even when his teams were at the top of the mountain, Chuck Noll never became a household name to the world at large. What's more of a mystery is how the only coach to win 4 Super Bowls is even overlooked when people talk about the greatest coaches of all time, many of whom turn up early in his story.
At right guard from Dayton, weighing 210, Chuck Noll.
Now, when you played under Paul Brown, did you think at the time that you would be a coach someday?
No, I hadn't given it much thought. I was going to law school at the time, and I thought maybe that was the way I'd go. But when it came time to retire, I felt that, the thing I knew most was football. And in 1960, I called Sid Gilman, and fortunately, he hired me without any coaching experience whatsoever. And that was the start of it.
Well, the season is over for the players, but just beginning for the coaches and the staff. Coaches Walt Hackett, Chuck Noll plan the defense for the coming season.
Noll spent 6 seasons with the Chargers. Then, in 1966, headed to Baltimore, where he became Don Shula's defensive coordinator.
Split, flare, the flare!
After working out a few kinks, Noll crafted one of the best units in the game, right up to when Broadway Joe stole the show in Super Bowl III. The day after that game, Noll moved on again, this time to the ranks of head coach.
I had chances to go to New England and to Buffalo at that time, but after talking with Dan, I knew that they wanted to do what was right.
Dan was Dan Rooney, who had just taken over the management reins in Pittsburgh from Art Rooney, his father and the Steelers' founder. The goal was to jumpstart a franchise that had been stuck in self-destruct mode for most of its existence, and the first step was hiring a no-nonsense coach.
The first meeting with Chuck Noll, we had a lot of cynical, old, veteran players who'd seen a lot of coaches come and go, and there was, sort of this attitude, well, show me your stuff, coach. And he gave a speech which he essentially was saying to us, look, the reason you've been losing has nothing to do with your attitude. The reason you've been losing is you're not good enough. You can't run fast enough, you can't jump high enough, you're not quick enough, you're not skilled enough. And it was like, wow, this guy. And then he said, and I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to get rid of most of you. And I'm going to bring in the guys who can play these defenses and play these. They're going to be harder. I'm going to make you do the hard stuff.
Noll had the rare opportunity to basically rebuild a team from scratch, and he chose not to cash in his draft picks for established players.
Everybody wanted to give us all these guys, and I got this kind of early. People wanted to give you their problems, and come in and get good players. So, it kind of dawned on me that that's not what we want to do. We want to be able to bring people in, get them in our system, and not get somebody else's problems.
Over the next 6 years, a few of the picks were college stars, but most of them were unknown players from schools most people had never heard of.
Steelers' first-round selection, Joe Green.
Yet while fans may have been puzzled, Noll knew exactly what he was looking for.
With Joe, I was with the Colts at the time and went down to North Texas. I had the Texas territory scouting in the spring, and I watched him and talked to him a little bit, and there was no doubt in my mind that this guy, he loved to play football and wanted to play very badly, and to me, those are 2 things that you really have to have. We used to write away for transcripts, because we wanted to see whether the player was in there with basket weaving or whether he wanted to challenge himself, because that spoke a lot about the individual. So we ended up getting a lot of guys that were not only good football players but wanted to be challenged. Those are champions to me.
To me, a sign of how good Noll was is that he took a lot of down-the-line draft choices and made Hall of Famers out of them.
Take the 1974 class, for example, which sent not only first-round pick Lynn Swann to Canton, but second-round pick Jack Lambert, fifth-round pick Mike Webster, and fourth-rounder John Stallworth, who was inducted in 2002. It's clear Noll had an eye for talent, but his greatest talent may have been the ability to motivate these players without saying a word.
A lot of people think motivation comes from the mouth, and it doesn't. Motivation comes from helping somebody get the job done. It's not saying, come on, you got to do it. That doesn't make it. We always were big on the how-to.
Noll always stressed the use of proper technique, and if you didn't live up to his expectations, you were either benched or gone. That was how he forged the cohesive unit from characters as diverse as Fats Holmes and Vietnam vet Rocky Blyer. How he got a man named Mean Joe and a firecracker like Lambert to work with a cerebral player like Andy Russell. You can also understand why he might have had a few problems with a crazy-leg quarterback who early in his career fought Noll's system with his tendency to improvise.
My relationship with Chuck Noll went from hate to love to confusion. Early in my career, I couldn't stand him. I'll never forget the Houston game my rookie year. I walked in 2 minutes late for a pregame meal. Stood me up, Mr. Bradshaw here. It was late and blah, blah, blah. We're going to find him and just mean and embarrass me again. Grabbed me on the sideline, jerked me up and down, and put me in a game, pulled me out, cussed me out on the sidelines. And I just couldn't understand this garbage.
How would you describe your relationship with Terry?
Business-like. It was all business. He had great talent. It was something that, I think you see a lot of Terry on TV right now. He's fun-loving, kind of devil-may-care. And we couldn't have that in our quarterback. It had to be, we got to get this done, and this is how we're going to do it. And I think it worked. He may not have liked it, but it worked.
I was talking to Paul Zimmerman before I came down here, and he's saying, well, who are you going to do? And I said, well, we're going to do a special on Chuck Noll. So Dr. Z sort of laughs at me. He says, well, good luck. He says, good luck. I said, it's the worst interview there is. And this is what he said.
I think Chuck Noll made writers nervous. Because even when he was giving you good information and being sincere, you always got the feeling that there was the curled lip in there, that there was the hint of a sneer.
I think he started off life wanting to associate with people from whom he could learn something. And if he didn't feel that he could learn anything from you, he felt he was wasting your time and would blow you off.
That's interesting, that perspective. Because Paul, most of the time, we just want to talk about wine, being a wine writer.
Merlots aside, Noll was infamous for being tight-lipped with the media.
There'd be something so bad.
I won't even answer that question.
An approach that stemmed from an incident in 1969.
Well, one of the things after a game, everybody wanted to know whose fault it was. And my first year with the Steelers, Mel Blount was beaten for a touchdown, and I said, it was Mel's man. And the next game, we were introducing the defense, and when they introduced Mel, the fans just booed like you wouldn't believe, and just crushed Mel, his spirit. So after that, I tried not to point out if there was a breakdown, it was more than one guy.
Let's just say he wasn't a walking soundbite, or the type of coach who lends his name to gas grills or a brand of snow tires.
Chuck did not perform commercials as Shula did all the time, national commercials on television. Chuck said the commercials are for the players. Let them make the money. He simply was not interested in promoting himself. As a consequence, you only sometimes hear of him mentioned with the great coaches.
Here you are, the only man in history to win 4 Super Bowls. Are you ever going to write a book?
No.
Why not?
Because, that's, coaching is a very personal thing. It's not something you want to broadcast.
And boy, did we find that out the hard way. I was shocked when I got to know him a little better. I learned that he's actually an accomplished pilot, seaman, and gourmet chef. He's a classic Renaissance man, an expert on just about everything.
One time, Craig Colquitt, Terry Bradshaw, and myself were strumming guitars in the dorm room. Chuck Noll walks by, sees that we're kind of playing and singing, walks in, takes the guitar from my hands, plays 2 or 3 songs, sings one, hands the guitar back, and walks out, but never said a word. It was like he just wanted to show that he could play the guitar too and wanted to join in a little bit, but didn't need to say, yeah, I can play the guitar.
Noll also never lost interest in his college major, physical science.
I think this was Rocky Bleier that told me. He says that one of the things that you always liked to do was to come up with new ideas, that every year that you'd have some sort of new way of getting in condition. And I said, well, was there ever one that didn't work? And he said, yeah. He said one year that, he said, Chuck had studied some Olympic runners, that they were increasing their speed by
downhill running. Right.
Yeah, and it didn't.
It didn't work. The whole idea was the way you increase speed was stride length or frequency. As it turned out, we had more injuries from that. It didn't work out.
We often joked about Chuck and his desire to teach and his desire to coach, and he would do that on any given occasion. We did not want to be caught in a shower with Chuck at the end of a football game because there was a tendency for him to start coaching you right there in the shower. And so we all hurried to get out of the shower before Chuck got there. And there were some visions of being caught in a bathroom stall with Chuck next door. We thought he might even coach you then.
But the most unusual thing about Noll may have been his attitude towards Super Bowls, lifting curfews and cutting his players loose on the town, because he believed the reason the Colts lost Super Bowl III was that they were too uptight about being on the world stage.
It was something that I tried to go into every Super Bowl with, this is a reward. Let's have a good time. Don't fight the media types. Have a good time with them. Rocky Bleier, for example, took a camera. He had a camera, and he was filming the media. And Ray Mansfield, guys finished, and he says, wait, I'm not finished yet. Come on back. It was this kind of thing, and I think that really helped.
And while Chuck may never map out his theories in a book, he did offer me 3 words that would have made a great title for his autobiography.
We say whatever it takes. A lot of people have different meanings for that, but what it meant to us was, as members of a team, you have to do whatever you can do to help the team win. Now, if someone else is not functioning very well, he may be sick. Well, somebody else has to step up. Whatever it takes means team. And I think our guys bought into that.
The motto is probably best illustrated in the Steelers' most famous play.
4th down and 10 yards to go. And Bradshaw back and looking again. Bradshaw running out of the pocket.
The thing that made that thing work, Franco was very special from the standpoint that he never took a play off.
Looking for somebody to throw to, fires it downfield. And there's a collision.
He finished the play. His assignment on that particular play was to block the outside linebacker. So he goes over to block the outside linebacker. He's not coming, so he sees the scramble, so he starts out to try to become a receiver. So he's in the area there where the ball comes, and all of this comes from doing more than you're expected to do.
It's caught out of the air. The ball is pulled in by Franco Harris. Harris is going for a touchdown for Pittsburgh.
You have something that you're asked to do, then if you can do more, that is really going to help. That's whatever it takes.
So in a way, the Immaculate Reception epitomizes your philosophy of coaching when it looks like you look and say, well, this is just happenstance and luck. But the way you explained it, it really is, in a way, a confirmation of all the things you believe in as a head coach.
Yeah, there's the old saying about preparation makes you lucky.
Preparation also made them very good, thanks to the man Joe Green once called the only indispensable Steeler, who also may have been their most unique personality.
One thing I learned very early is you have to be yourself. You can't imitate somebody else. You have to do the things the way you have strong feelings. If you imitate somebody else, you're going to be a poor imitation, and it's not going to work.
And Noll was always himself, even when he had to face the media for the last time.
The only thing that I can say is thank you. This is to everybody, to the city of Pittsburgh, to the coaches that I've been associated with through the years, to the players, especially the players, because those are the guys that make it happen on the field. It's been great memories, and after 39 years in it, I have to step back and see what the flowers smell like for a little bit.
It was a dignified, tearless departure, fitting for an intellectual who believed that at its core, football isn't such a complicated game.
Coach Noll would always say, if they're trying to fool you, that means they can't beat you with their best stuff. They're desperate. Just line up and say, come on. That's Chuck Noll.
Those basic, fundamental things that you grew up with, that every coach had drilled into your head, but it all came to a light.
And somewhere in that light lies Noll's legacy. A coach who was handed a team stuck in the cellar of pro football, took them to the top, and kept them there.
So what would you tell your grandchildren if your grandchildren say, Grandpa, what was it like to coach that team?
It was fun. It really was fun.
It's kind of what you'd expect from a guy who one day simply decided not to be a lawyer and instead went on to build the greatest football team of all time.